to THA Talks, for free thought and open minds.
And for freedom of speech.
Hello, I'm Paul Obitelli and welcome to another edition of THA Talks, the alternative podcast show from the UK. Our talks include news, conspiracies, spirituality, the occult, science, history, art, philosophy, religion, and much more. If you'd like to check out our full archive, just go to www.thatalks.com to listen to or to download all our free content. And if there's anyone who'd like to contact us and give us some feedback, maybe you'd like to recommend a guest for the show, you can email us info@thatalks.com. And don't forget, you can subscribe to the show via our RSS feed, and you can also find us on iTunes, Stitcher, Spotify, YouTube, and many other podcast directories out there. Hello folks, thanks for tuning in again. Apologies for the length of time since the last show I uploaded. It's partly down to just me being very busy, and partly down to the fact I'm just being a little bit more selective about who I invite on the show and bring them on, and how I'm shaping the show of late. Not that I'd like to limit, obviously, the scope. We'd like to keep the spectrum broad, as THA Talks has always done. But just being a little bit more fussy about it, because just so that I can embrace the subjects a little bit more and a bit more well researched on it all myself, because it makes the interview a bit better, I feel, and makes it easier as well, especially when I am busy doing other bits and bobs. So that's kind of like why it's been a bit of a gap there. So we've got an interesting chat coming on today. We're going to be speaking with Yanny Bruere. Now, I think I've pronounced that right. I had the same issues when his uncle came on the show in edition 91. We spoke to Sadiq Khan about transhumanism. He was the leader of the transhumanism party, very smart guy, scientist, and I would actually like to have Dirk come back on. He's a friend of mine now, and I'm sure we'll have a fascinating chat if I can get him back on the show, so that'll be cool. But today we are going to be speaking with his nephew, Yanny. Now, for those of you who don't know, Yanny, last summer was all over the mainstream media because he's the man behind the big Sadiq Khan balloon, Sadiq Khan in a bikini balloon that was flown over London this summer in response to Khan's critique of Donald Trump. That there was also a balloon flown of Donald Trump in a nappy that got all sorts of media headlines, and Sadiq Khan was very outspoken about Donald Trump's visit as the mayor of London. A lot of people felt that he was speaking for the country, which of course he can't do that. He's just the mayor of London. So it annoyed a lot of people, and this is what kind of motivated Yanny to raise some funds that he did in a very short time, fly this balloon, and the media frenzy on the day was obviously a lot of character assassinations thrown at him, and just the usual kind of thing. So I thought it'd be great to have Yanny to come on the show, let us know what he's up to, what his plans are, if he's got any possible plans for the future, and just generally about the mainstream media, having been in the position he has, and just to talk about that a little. Here he is. Yanny, how are you doing?
Good, thank you, Paul. How are you?
Yeah, very, very well. I've wanted to get you on the show for a while, because I was really interested in the campaign you did with the balloon. It was actually quite funny, because when I was listening to all the fuss with the Trump balloon, in my head I just knew, someone's going to do one, someone's going to react to this, and lo and behold, you created this. And funny enough, I linked a friend of mine, Sadiq Khan, and without even knowing, and he come back and said, "Oh yeah, this is my nephew doing it." That made it all the more interesting. So I mean, first of all, how are you, and what you've been up to?
Yeah, I'm really good. So in kind of the aftermath of that, we've been working on a website called Make London Safe Again to try and put the rest of the funds into that, and highlight the crime in London at the moment, because it's just horrific, isn't it? Exactly what's going on under Sadiq Khan.
Oh yeah, I mean it's obviously going on all around the country, and some people sort of call on that, but there's no doubt London has been the worst it's been, and it's really bad at the moment.
Yeah, I think what happens in London, kind of everywhere else follows suit, if that makes sense. I think you see, because, people in Huddersfield and Wakefield or Wigan or wherever, they're all looking into London. Whereas when you're in London, you don't look out, if that makes sense. You don't see what's going on in the rest of the UK.
Yeah, I mean, I've seen it myself. I used to live near the Croydon area when I was growing up, and I mean, it's never been great. It's always had its areas, but now it's just, I'd say it's bordering on a no-go zone, because I know when there was some London riots that broke out, I know people that live there and stuff, and I was really worried for them and stuff, and that kind of thing really has the potential to break out any point, especially when you look at how Sadiq Khan is running things,
Exactly, and like you touched on the London riots there. Once we saw it, it started in London, and then we saw it kind of spread throughout the UK, didn't we? So it went to Birmingham, Manchester. That's it. So yeah, whatever happens in London, kind of the rest of the UK does follow suit to an extent.
Well, I mean, it goes down to this to the police as well. Now, I stick up for the police, and because they do a brave job, and they do look. Anyone's in trouble, they're the ones we call. But the thing is that you can't help but see this a certain corruption with it, because when those riots were taking place, it just seemed they were so afraid to do anything, to sort of get heavy-handed. And yet I saw a march the other day with Football Lads Alliance, which, people call them far right. They're not even a political party. They're just an anti-extremist group. And it did not take much at all. The Antifa sort of showed up and started acting aggressive in their masks. So a few of them retaliated. Out come the sticks. It didn't take a sniff of their reaction until they started becoming heavy-handed. And it's just, you see these double standards, and it's like, I think this is what's annoying people as well, and making them get their noses out of joint, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. Like you said about the double standard, it seems that the police are seen as a soft touch, I think, in the UK now. And despite a lot of people do want to respect them and that kind of thing, but when you see them kind of turning up to these pride events and dancing around, you do lose a little bit of respect for it. And you see that they've always got enough police officers for that, but then they don't have enough police to kind of attend burglaries and different crime scenes. So that's what irritates people. They're not putting their resources in the right area.
Yeah,
and it gets frustrating time and time again.
I think that the actual Trump protests, which happened a few weeks before when you flew your balloon, basically, I think it cost them 18 million in taxpayers.
I saw that. It's unbelievable, isn't it?
And it's like you say, when you got the police dancing at these pride rallies, and then you get a bunch of youngsters take a picture of Tommy. They've just seen us. Oh, look, there's Tommy Robbins. Whoa, hey, oh, Tommy. Take a picture, and one of them's been released, and it's just ridiculous when you hear those stories, in my opinion.
It's political correctness, isn't it? It's just gone absolutely crazy. Absolutely. It's guilt by association, which is in overdrive, isn't it?
And it's
at the moment, and recently.
Yeah, it's getting scary. So anyway, let's go back to when you first started thinking about what happened. Did you just suddenly think, you know what, I'm going to do it, or was it? Is there a group of you involved? Tell us a bit more about how that got going.
Yeah, so it was literally I was living in Barcelona at the time. I was at home, in my living room one afternoon. I just read the article about Sadiq Khan approving the Trump baby, and I thought it just irritated me straight away at it. And without thinking, I just set up a retaliatory crowdfund. I've never set up a crowdfund before. I didn't really know the process or anything like that. I just thought, okay, it's very funny, isn't it, Sadiq? And let's see if you're going to kind of, or how committed you are to free speech, and let's see if you're willing to do the same for yourself. So with that, I didn't really think about it, to be honest. All in the space of about 30 minutes of reading that article, there was I'd set up a crowdfund, and it was up, and it kind of took off from there.
So you must have been quite, just do this thing, and all of a sudden, boom, you're like, oh my gosh, this is actually getting quite serious now then. So
yeah, so I think the first hour it raised £5, and I thought, this isn't going very well. And then it kind of, as the night went on, it kind of got the attention of different people, and it got to about 2,000 or 3,000. I think Paul Joseph Watson saw it later that evening, tweeted it, and then the next day it was at 12,000. I was just like, shit.
Oh,
what's going on?
They do a great job. I mean, people like Lauren Southern, Paul Joseph Watson and stuff, and they do a fantastic job. I mean, sometimes I think, what would you do without them, to be honest? Because and it's getting worrying, because they are starting to get attacked on social media and sort of taken out one by one, and that's another worry,
Yeah, it's very draconian now, isn't it? I mean, we're seeing that everyone's being censored or shut down or silenced and taken offline, which is the scary thing. Anyone who's got like a different angle or different opinion, they're just been taken out.
Yeah. So with this balloon, when he started making money for it, I mean, I thought, because with the Trump one, I listen to LBC through the day when I'm doing odd jobs and stuff, and it was always, they're promoting it every day. I mean, they're kind of, even if they're saying it's a bit stupid, they're still promoting it, saying there's going to be a Trump balloon floating in London on this day, and it rallies the troops, whereas I think with your one, the media didn't mention it for about 4 weeks. I think you went on LBC, if I'm not mistaken. Once I heard you on there, and then for about 4 or 5 weeks until the actual day came, there was absolutely nothing, so it just shows you the difference. They did not want to promote, your event, basically.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, I don't know if you saw the emails revealed last week by Guido Fawkes about the Sadiq Khan approving the Trump blimp. I don't know if you saw that.
No, I didn't. No.
So basically, Guido Fawkes, there was loads of emails that they found, which was that originally the GLA, that's the Greater London Authority, actually declined the Trump baby. They said, look, we're not going to have it on this day. There's high security risk already with the president visiting. But it was shown that Sadiq Khan's top advisors leaned, in their own words, they leaned on the GLA to make it happen. So they kind of overruled that decision. So there was a massive desire for this to happen, from the Liberals and Sadiq Khan particularly, although he denied it at the time. But those emails have exposed him now, and actually showing that he, had a role in that Trump baby balloon being permitted. So there was a desire, and it was, like you said, it was promoted all over the media. So there was a kind of glee about it, wasn't there?
Oh, absolutely.
Everyone, they wanted to see it happen. They couldn't wait. They were kind of licking their lips at it. And that was the kind of feeling that I got from it anyway.
Now, I mean, it was at 9:30 in the morning. Now, that I felt at the time, and now that's going to be difficult. A lot of people outside of London are going to struggle to get into London that time. What was that, the time you chose, or?
No, so that was the time the Donald Trump one flew as well. Originally, when I put the application in, I put it for 1 o'clock, so 1 till 3.
Yeah.
In the afternoon, about 10 days before it was meant to happen. They told me it will be 9:30 in the morning now. So they kind of left it all that time and told me it would be 9:30. They said if it does go ahead, it will be 9:30 in the morning. And then at that point, I kind of knew that it was going to be difficult to get people out, and it was going to be limited numbers. And so the next step from that really was to try and get as much media or mainstream media exposure as possible. So that became the objective then.
Well, I mean, I remember seeing pictures, and there was a few people there, but not as much as I thought there would be, because obviously there was so much people that donated. That in itself. I mean, it was over 60,000 you raised in the end, wasn't it?
Yeah, 59,000.
59,000, right?
Yeah.
So, I mean, that's a lot of people donating. But that said, I mean, the media for about 2 or 3 days, you were pretty famous, weren't you?
Yeah. It went in the Daily Mail on the Wednesday night, so the Thursday copy of the Daily Mail, and then the next day I had the phone was ringing from 7 in the morning till literally 10 at night. I did about 14 radio interviews. So yeah, no, it was really good that it got that exposure. It was trending on Twitter at number 2 at one point, which is quite weird as well.
Yeah, I mean,
it was good that it got that exposure and kind of humiliated Khan in that kind of way as well.
Absolutely. I mean, obviously there came the ugly side, because you see this so much in the mainstream media now, particularly with, I'll bring up again Tommy Robinson, the character assassination. I mean, no one's perfect. If you look at anyone's history and comb through things they've said, things they've done, mistakes they've made in the past, you can demonize anyone. And the media, they just grab a hold of someone and they will not let go. And obviously you face this because you decided to fly a Sadiq Khan blimp in reaction supporting Trump. You were, of course, anti-Semitic. That was the accusation, because no one likes to be called that, because there's a lot of heat on that if you're labelled that. And it must have been. Were you intimidated? I mean, you had a lot of sort of the media saying this about you. Did it upset you at all?
Well, originally I found there's a company called Bellingcat, investigative journalist online research team, who actually did that article on me. I found the article on the 2nd of August. They informed me of it, and I just ignored it. I knew that it was going to blow up later on, when the balloon came to light and everything. I knew that it was going to other tabloids would pick it up and that kind of thing. But I thought they're always going to find something, weren't they? I thought it's not worth to be silenced and intimidated all the time. So yeah, I thought just to go with it. But the really irritating thing is, it's not so much that everyone's, your past is dug up. That it's irritating, but you can take it. It's the fact that it's so one-sided. It's the fact that it's so double standard. They didn't do it to the Trump team.
That's it. Yeah, and they've taken you as a character, and because they've got so much more clout to communicate to people than you have, they're telling people who you are, and it's frustrating because you can't say, "Hang on, they're telling you something that's wrong about me." And it's such a misuse and abuse of power, and we're seeing so much of that now.
I know it's really frustrating. It really is. There's not a lot you can do about it either. And you're always going to get those people on Twitter and Facebook who read a headline, don't even read an article, read a headline and just demonize you straight away and say you're this, you're that. That's really irritating because people don't even take the time to read something and make their own mind up. They just read a headline and then they've made their mind up. And
you get a lot of these progressives, they're just looking for, because they hate you already because of what you're doing, they don't care if it's true or not. It's just a stick to hit you with. Let's take this. It's witch burning, isn't it? It's that mentality.
Exactly. Yeah, and that's the scary thing, isn't it? Because when it happens to me or to whoever, it can happen to them.
That's right.
The point is, everyone should be behind the fact that, look, what's the point of this? It's got no relevance to what this person's doing.
Well, I mean, we've had that a little bit here on the this podcast. I've interviewed a lot of people, and there's some people who I socialise with that are, let's say, firmly to the right, but it's almost like guilt with association. You're not allowed to talk to people that are in this. If you do, then you are a Nazi. If you do, and again, I've had slander written about me, and I think the best way, what I think, don't underestimate how much people out there know smell their bullshit. There's a lot of people out there, they know what the media's like. So I think you just got to be strong, haven't you? You just got to be, don't let it wind you up. Have faith. There's a lot of people reading, and more people out there would have liked to have bought you a beer than the other way around. It's just the media never give that impression. They give the impression that they are the majority, which they very rarely are nowadays.
Yeah, that was always in the back of my mind as well. I kind of thought, I didn't believe what they said, so I thought, why would other people? I thought it was just kind of, I think generally people are waking up to it and they're seeing through it. And I think it was Donald Trump, wasn't it, with the fake news term when he came out with that a year or two ago. It's done a massive fight back against the mainstream media, and you can see that. And I think most sensible people who just look at things logically without looking at it from a biased perspective, I think they see it. I think they think, yeah, you know what, this is just bullshit anyway. So it didn't really bother me. I think intelligent people see it for what it is, and the people who are against you're never going to please anyway. So there's no point trying, really, is there?
Well, yeah, it comes back to that witch burning thing again. It's people, and it's like what you say. They don't realise when they abuse this, when they use this witch hunting mentality and abuse people's rights in a way, because they're attacking your character, socially out there, on a mass scale. They don't realise that this can be done to them and their children. They are creating a form of behaviour that will then be a part of our society. That will be a part of the culture of this country, that you can accuse people with things even without proving them and ruin their lives or do that kind of stuff. And they're not
exactly. Yeah. It's like we're seeing with the whole Kavanaugh thing, wasn't it? In America,
Absolutely,
everyone's being proved guilty of rape before they've even been tried, and it's unbelievable. And the amount of people who get behind it and support that, celebrities and press, demonizing people, ruining people, it's unbelievable. And it's only going to, it's going to come back around to them at some point. It will.
Yeah.
And then they'll feel it. Then they'll see what they're doing.
Yeah. I think, I take it you're a Trump supporter, saying all this.
Yeah, I was labelled as this really pro-Trump, kind of crazy on the Trump train, and I like Trump. I respect him. I think he's welcome to the UK. I'm not keen on every policy, but I think he's doing a good job as the US president for sure.
Well, I think the funny thing is, the people that are getting called, they're the fascists, they're the dictators, like your Farage, your Donald Trump, UKIP, For Britain, all these kind of groups out there. They're the only ones that are standing up for democracy and freedom of speech. It's everyone else that's trying to attack it. Trump at the moment is the only one that's pointing out the corruption in social media, the bias, and like you say, where people can accuse him. It's like Kavanaugh. He could be as guilty as hell, but there's no evidence. And unfortunately, sometimes that means that some people do get away with stuff maybe they have done, but on overall, innocent until proven guilty is so valuable for our society,
Well, it's fundamental, isn't it? It's the law, and like you say, it's just unbelievable times at the moment. Like I think we saw that surge of people signing up to UKIP, didn't we, a couple of months ago? And they're basically in the UK at the moment. They're the only party who are defending free speech, really.
Yeah.
That's why they've attracted so many new people, because it's such a hot topic of the moment. Free speech, and in the UK there isn't really free speech, is there? It's free speech at a price, basically.
Absolutely. No, I mean, I was going to say, did you see the interview with Gerard Batten on BBC recently? Did you see that interview?
No, I haven't seen it. I saw one on Sky they did briefly. Yeah,
it's recently. It's a few days ago, and I can't remember the woman who run the show, but it was horrific. But it backfired on the BBC because it was a hatch job. Basically, they basically just attacked him for supporting Tommy Robinson, for this and that, making up lies about him. But he dealt with it brilliantly, and ultimately he made the BBC look absolutely stupid. And I think that's what's happening at the moment. This populist movement, it's actually getting in its stride now, and what's happening is, after they've won, the progressives aren't changing their tactics. They're just doing what they've done before tenfold, and it's like they just will not listen to reason. They will not listen to the other side of the argument and change the way they are. So I can't see things changing. Can you?
I don't know. I mean, I see a massive amount of ground has been made, particularly over the summer. I think a lot of those, I didn't go to any of the marches, but the Tommy Robinson protests, you saw just how many people turned out for them and that kind of thing. I think things are shifting, and people are, because part of the problem up until then, or still is really, people are so afraid to speak out, aren't they? They're so afraid to say anything. And you're seeing this thing with Tommy Robinson at the moment with the army. People are liking his page, and they're in the army, they're being discarded and chucked out and that kind of thing. And the more people who stand up against it, the less it will happen. That's the hope anyway.
Absolutely.
But I think there is ground being made, slowly but surely. But it all starts with government, doesn't it? They need a real conservative government, really.
Yeah,
power.
Absolutely. Now, I remember seeing on Twitter that you had a few exchanges with James O'Brien. I've done a video, a debunk, exposed, should I say, video of James O'Brien recently that's had a few watches. What was all that about, your little exchange?
To be honest, I can't remember off the top of my head. I think I probably got, in the aftermath of that balloon, I probably got about 10 or 12,000 tweets of hate.
Yeah.
From blue ticks, here and there. I can't remember what exactly he said. It was something along the lines of that. It's just a cover up of far right or something like that, wasn't it?
Oh yeah, and he's ridiculous with that. I mean, it's anyone that's
so patronising is just unbearable to listen to. Completely out of touch.
It's looking down and talking down at people. Again, I'm going to assume that you're a Brexiteer.
Yeah, I did vote Brexit.
And I mean, with regards to where you are now with the blip, are there any plans for any future projects?
So I mean, it's the mayor elections coming up, isn't it? And so there'll be campaigning starting in the summer for that. So that's kind of a convenient time to have a Sadiq Khan balloon, really.
Yeah.
We can use that and take that around. So I'm meeting someone who's actually thinking about standing as a mayor tomorrow in London. In 2020, so I'm meeting him. We're going to see what happens there. But in the meantime, what we're going to be doing is trying to, like I said, put some of the money into the Make London Safe Again campaign and make people aware of what's happening in London, because so much of it isn't reported, and that's the scary thing.
Yeah, you
see everything that is reported, and you think, oh god, that's the ghetto, that's the danger zone.
Yeah,
but then if everyone knew everything what was going on, it's just, I don't think anyone would go there again.
Well, yeah, the thing is, I think. The Tory party, obviously, with their cutbacks on the police, I mean, that's obviously not going to help. But it just seems to be a combination, I think, between the Tories and the Labour Party. We're just in real trouble at the moment. Both of them, none of them are going to solve the problems in this country. We need to do what some of these other countries are doing, which is have a bit more bravery. I think maybe in some ways Brexit has kind of cloaked a lot of our bigger issues, and really we need to vote these two big parties out. Would you agree with that or not?
Yeah, I think it's because of the system in the UK. It's just so difficult, isn't it? The first past the post. It's so difficult for any other kind of party to come through.
Yeah.
So I think pressure groups have a real big impact. I think you saw with UKIP in 2015, Nigel Farage campaigning for the referendum, and he did that. So I think pressure groups have got a big role to play in UK politics. I think that's a big angle to go on. But like you said about the police, you've got immigration, uncontrolled immigration, basically, no borders, whatever. And then you've got less police on your streets. So you've got more and more people coming. You don't know who they are, and you've got less police to protect everyone. It's just, I don't understand it.
Yeah,
it's absurd, isn't it? It just doesn't make sense. It's almost like it's done on purpose.
I do wonder whether they're trying to create opportunity for a private police to be added, because I know Theresa May's husband, I think he's got huge shares in G4S. And
yeah, I did read about that. Yeah, it's a bit alarming in itself, isn't it?
And that's why I'm kind of mixed with how people attack the police, because I think on as a whole, most policemen and policewomen are decent people trying to do a good job, but you just seem to get this. I think you just get a lot of poor policemen and women. I mean, America's certainly seeing that, a lot of poor decisions out there, and so it's like a mixture. So I'm half critical of it, but at the same time, it's almost like we're being. I mean, this could be a conspiracy that we're beating up our police force. We've got a private police force. They'll fix it for us. I'm just waiting for that introduction to come into the play.
Yeah, it's difficult, isn't it? I mean, you want to respect them, and then you see some of the things they do, and you just think, "What are you doing? Why are you doing that?" And then when you do see the right things they're doing, like they're stopping, searching people, and this kind of thing to stop crime, which is sensible. You see people like Diane Abbott and David Lammy, isn't it? They're saying is, there's a video on Twitter the other day, actually, a guy being arrested. He was trying not to be arrested. It took a few police officers. There was no brutality at all. And he was on Twitter straight away saying he's made a complaint to the independent police commissioners and this kind of thing. You just think, but that's the problem, because they're not being allowed to police.
Yeah.
Every time they do their job properly, they're being told you're being forceful and you're being this, and they have independent panels against them and inquiries against them for probably about a year or so at the taxpayers' expense. So it's just a difficult job, isn't it? I don't envy their job at all. It's kind of you can't win, can you?
No, I mean
lose.
That's right, and it comes down to the mainstream media, because every time something happens, I think we nearly had another riot last year when there was that policeman who was chasing that young kid, and the kid swallowed something, so the policeman tried to get it out of his throat, and he ended up choking on it. I think did the boy die? I think he did die from it. Actually.
Yeah, it happened in a shop, wasn't it?
Yeah,
I think it was a corner shop in London.
It turns out it was fake drugs. So what's obviously happened is this kid has got a dealer that's given him some drugs that aren't even real that he's going to sell to people. But he's obviously panicked, tried to eat the evidence, and this policeman's sort of doing his job, and there was riots about it, and the media just has such a bias on this, rather than and it's you look at people say today, we're such a divided society and stuff. It's because the media are divided. They do a job like that where they treat everyone differently. There's so much different treatment for different groups and stuff, and this provokes it.
Yeah, absolutely. Everyone should just be treated equally, like all these minority groups, all the pandering to the minority groups. That's what people are tired of as well. But like with that particular case, you said, this was a drug dealer. It's not how many lives does he cost people, but there's no one's up in arms about that. They just want to something to shout about police brutality and all this kind of thing. It's an easy cop out, isn't it?
Yeah.
Pardon the pun, to blame the police all the time.
Now
that's what's happening.
Now, I mean, we staying on the subject of the media again, but I guess branching out into something that's kind of relevant to it. Have you researched, or are you aware of the QAnon? I'm asking everyone this at the moment. The QAnon conspiracy. Are you aware of what that is?
Only briefly, not too much in depth. No.
Because that's something that I've been really recent. I mean, we've interviewed a representative from British Fight, who is actually now behind a sort of an umbrella party movement called the People's Revolution Party, trying to get as many small parties to form a coalition to try and knock the two big parties out here. And we've interviewed British Fight. It's meant to be like a British branch or a British affiliate of QAnon. And I mean, you listen to Trump and the way it's a hopeful movement, isn't it? Because I think unless we really need to start seeing people fight the media, social media, and stick up for Western democracy and stuff, because so I mean, you and anyone listening, I think it's definitely worth researching it. And even if it's not true, I think it's still a good, healthy movement, because it's pulling people together that believe in doing that, you know?
Yeah, no, well, I agree in principle, absolutely. Yeah, there needs to be a more coerced effort against the media. It's just difficult because they do have a massive monopoly, don't they? And it's predominantly all liberals in the media, and their agendas kind of get pushed through and forced through, and still a lot of people do believe it. But I think they're on borrowed time, actually, the mainstream media in particularly. I just think that more people are waking up to it.
Yeah.
And more people are turning off, Sky News and BBC and that kind of thing, and looking for alternative people on YouTube.
That's right. I mean, and I do think we're seeing as I said, with the way the progressives, and I used to say lefties. I don't say lefties anymore, because I think there are a lot of lefties out there. They're very red-pilled, very aware of what's going on, and we tend to sort of use these words pretty loosely. But I kind of use the word progressives now. I think that's kind of suits them a little bit more. And the progressives, they just haven't changed their tune. And it's like I'm seeing the groups like UKIP, although apparently British Fight doesn't trust UKIP, and I'm a little bit apprehensive of Gerard Batten. Is he a shill, just sort of winning us over, trying to stop other? There is that risk. I think we've got to be careful with that. But I think ultimately, even if these parties are shills like that, they're just appeasing a movement that will eventually just demand control, one way or another.
Yeah, there's definitely that appetite for it, isn't there? So even if they are being sold to shills, or the shills are leading it, there still is the grassroots movement. Sorry, that's there and believes in it. So eventually it will have to supersede and kind of come through. It's going to have to. I think the UK is basically the only country in the EU, isn't it, that hasn't had that kind of patriotic party come through at the moment. Whereas most other places you've seen the uprising of the populist mainstream party.
Absolutely.
The UK hasn't really got one.
Yeah.
So, and there is an appetite for it. You can feel it, can't you? There's definitely, you can feel it.
Absolutely. I mean, you look at Europe, you've got Italy, you have, and apparently Matteo Salvini, although he's not the actual prime minister, they love him out there now, because a lot of his ideas have been implemented, and the party is being true to a lot of its policies. It said it's pressing on, it's cutting back immigration, it's removing a lot of the illegals, immigrants, unapologetically, not feeling guilty about doing so, which the media always try to make people think, oh my God, you just kicked out someone that's a serial rapist. How could you do that? In many cases, and they're beginning to really like him out there, and a lot of people think that he may himself the next election out there if it keeps up like this, because he's becoming such a popular character. Then you've got Poland, you've got Hungary, you've got Austria, a lot of other these East European parties. And like you say, I think if it wasn't for the first past the post, I mean, we probably would have seen someone more like UKIP get a lot more influence, start getting good results, and then people start trusting them, and it would probably happen, but it's difficult.
Yeah, it's just that first past the post thing, isn't it? I mean, I think it was Nigel Farage with UKIP in 2015, I think it was 2015, the election. They got 4 million votes, didn't they? They got one candidate. They got one MP.
Yeah, they should have had about 75 seats, I think. It was something like that.
It's ridiculous, isn't it? So, but yeah, these people in Europe, like Salvini, he seems really robust on what he's been doing, and he's walking the talk, isn't he? He's not just talking like we see here with all these politicians who say, yeah, we'll do this, and they get into power and they do something completely different.
Yeah.
And that's what people want to see, I think, like with the Donald Trump, isn't it? So politics has shifted, I think.
You see it. You see it over here. The most mainstream politicians and the media are not. They do not know what the people think. It's like that BBC interview I was telling you about. It was so out of touch because they have this feeling that they're representing the majority and everyone agrees with them. where most people are sick and tired of hearing it and stuff, and they're just so out of touch. It's just this position at the moment where we are, the authorities in this country are just not representing the mood of the people, and it's becoming more and more and more obvious. And that's the only reason why I think the Tories and these parties are even entertaining them a little bit, like with the Brexit and stuff, because it's just so overwhelmingly obvious and there. If they didn't, they wouldn't last 5 minutes. They really wouldn't.
Yeah, I can't believe how out of touch these people are. People didn't ever expect Donald Trump. They didn't expect Brexit, and they still don't seem to be learning or listening to the people. So that's the scary thing, that these people are still so arrogant. They can't see the revolt or the uprising kind of coming. But I think it is coming, and the more that these people are so out of touch, and they're losing people. They're just losing people all the time.
Yeah, and I mean, with what you're doing, you've done a fantastic job with what you're doing. Obviously, you had a lot of critics attacking you, which you expected. But the bottom line is, you acted, you went and did something, and you're an example that, this is how you make things happen and stuff. And I'm sure it's not the last bit of activism you do. We're sort of edging on towards the end. I mean, what I wanted to ask is, obviously I'm friends with your uncle, who's a pagan into asatru. I mean, it's not something you have to discuss. It's just a thing I want to throw in there. Is that something you're into at all? Are you a religious person? Are you an atheist, or are you?
Yeah, atheist. Yeah, he's always been into different kind of things to me, Jack. Yeah. So no, I'm an atheist. I'm not really too into religion, to be honest.
That's fair enough.
Yeah. How about you? Are you? I'm as well.
Yeah, I practice asatru with Dirk. I mean, Dirk's come on the show, and I've actually been friends with Dirk now for a couple of years. We've been going to pagan events together. That's why I was curious whether he'd thrown you a book or two or something, and you were familiar with it or something.
Not yet. He hasn't. No.
Oh, okay.
I'll have to ask him to give me some material.
Yeah. Well, I mean, to be, what I will say in a little bit of preach is, when it comes to paganism, there's almost a side of it, even if you're an atheist, you can indulge in it, because it's quite it's about archetypes and culture and this kind of thing, and it's a little bit that I personally don't. I come from a more with a belief in deity and what that sort of sense of reality within that area, but it certainly can be embraced in that way, but perhaps that's for another show, Is there anything you'd like to add? Let our listeners know about any events you've got coming up, or anything else you'd like to touch on?
No. So, just quickly on the Make London Safe Again campaign. So we are going to be launching that campaign and try and bring what's really happening in London with different videos and interviews of victims of crime in London and that kind of thing. And we are going to be using the balloon again in a not too distant future, but it's probably going to be more towards April time, when it's best to fly a balloon. Yeah. In those conditions. So
it costs a lot of money, so it'll be a shame not to use it again. And I'm sure and I think if it's a lot of the media leading up to it was kind of, some people are afraid to go and do this stuff, you know what I mean? So I think that's something to consider as well. For us guys, it takes a bit of bravery to go out to a protest, for the super, pro EU and super duper progressives, they kind of got the whole media, the state, they're all on their side, you're the wonderful ones. You got to be quite brave to go to these rallies, because there's always opposition. There's always nasty far left people that will like to follow a person on the way home and smack them around the head with something, There's all
a
these
cheap
stories.
Blind shot, that's the kind of type they are, isn't it?
Yeah, these stories always follow. So, but I think keep doing what you're doing, because I do think more and more people begin to think, sod this. I certainly have. I'll go to these rallies. No one's going to intimidate me from going out and expressing my human rights and stuff. And I think people just need to be a bit braver, and I think it's coming. And this is why they're angry with Tommy, because he's really rallying the troops there. And most of the people,
he's doing a massive amount for the movement, isn't he? Single-handedly, it looks like at times.
Most of them are good people as well. Forget what the media says. Anyone's listening, that you get riffraff in all walks of life. You get your handful of idiots and stuff, especially when you're dealing with 20,000 people, rallies and stuff. It's always going to happen. But the heart and soul of that movement is a good, honest and diplomatic movement, trying to make a difference with, before things do get worse,
Yeah, exactly. I think a lot of what he does is especially with this I am soldier X at the moment, is just trying to get over this thing that where people can't have an opinion of, they can't like a certain individual or person or group without being demonized and cut off and castrated from the rest of society. And that's what we're seeing. Yeah. So I understand why people are so afraid to go to demonstrations and speak out, because if you have kids and a mortgage, you don't want to lose your job. And that's the problem. You do lose your job. And that's the real issue. That's what really irritates me personally, is that people can't have an opinion without, having to risk losing their job. So there isn't free speech in the UK.
Yeah, not at all. And people like yourself that are brave, you set an example. I'd like to think I stick my neck out there sometimes with this show and stuff. And I think sometimes when you do it actually, the reward of it gives you a bit of a boost anyway. It's almost a bit of an adrenaline. And you think, you've done something to make a difference. So, and as I say, I think if you keep doing what you're doing in this balloon, I reckon that there's bigger crowds to come. So,
yeah, I mean, I'll just touch on that briefly. I think once you actually get slandered by the media and all this kind of thing, the thought of it is a lot worse than the actual it happening. Once it's happened, it's done. They've done it. That's it. So the thought of it and the idea of it is a lot worse than doing it. So if I was to give any advice of that kind of thing, I'd just say just do what you want to do. It's not even that bad.
Yeah, I agree. Once you're there and you're with a bunch of other like-minded people and you stick together, it's actually quite a nice feeling. You're sort of there, and it's a nice feeling. So, but I really appreciate you coming on the show, and it'll be great for you to come back in April or when you do this new new event when you fly the balloon again.
Yeah, it's great. Thanks for having me, Paul.
Yeah, no, anytime.
Yeah, really good to come on your show.
Oh, brilliant. Well, please come back on and update us. And, I'll catch you on Twitter until the next time. Take it easy.
Yeah, you too. Cheers, Paul.